Hey everyone, I'm John, and today I'm going to be talking about my 10 years in tech, or at least the history of the best I remember it. No, there wasn't any story about me getting my first computer when I was 8 years old and becoming some computer whiz kid. That's not a story that, at least I can tell. But my story actually starts in high school, so let me tell you about that. In high school, I was the type of kid who wanted to graduate early, but I couldn't actually graduate early, so I had to take on these things called internships. And there was this cool little internship about web development, but it really wasn't web development, it was web design. There was this guy, and he would basically set up websites for different businesses throughout the city I lived in. And that was really just installing some content management system to some random server and then, making money. So there was a lot of experience here. There's this thing called Joomla and WordPress and even .NET Nuke, and they all were just satisfied a different need. You might need forums, you might need discussions, you might need a website to host your shop, whatever it might have been. It was just kind of like that idea. So I learned a little bit about HTML and CSS and JavaScript, but it was so abstracted away from me that I wouldn't really know what it is. But around the same time, I was kind of fiddling with web development for kind of the things I was interested in. I was playing Counter-Strike and World of Warcraft, and my guild or my Counter-Strike team would need a website. And so I thought, hey, maybe I can do the same thing I was doing in this internship, and then I can theme it and make it look really cool and have some custom functionality. So I'd build that. I'd build a guild website or a Counter-Strike team forum so that people can schedule scrimmages. And then, I thought, hey, I have enough web development experience, maybe I can find a job. So the first thing I did when I graduated high school was I looked for jobs at the university I was going to go to. And I saw one opening. It was for a web developer. That's all it said, just web developer, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's all that was on kind of the requirements list. And I remember I applied to it and I kind of gave a good pitch because I had some of that experience, but honestly not much. I really didn't know HTML at all. I didn't know CSS, and I didn't even know JavaScript ran at the time. And then months later, I didn't hear anything back. I actually thought that the job was, already filled. But then on kind of a fall afternoon, I think it was October, I get a call and they basically offered me the job on the spot. But the only condition was I had to go in and kind of take a quick HTML, CSS, and JavaScript interview question. So I get there and I was just super nervous, and they gave me this quick, build this website. And again, I didn't know anything about HTML, I didn't know anything about CSS, and they gave me an hour to do it. And I had to stay there. So I basically had to create a website with a header and some different ordered elements and a table and all those different things, and I had to style them as well. I didn't know anything about it, and so I thought, well, let's just Google and just have our best stab at it. Well, the cool thing is that I picked up this stuff really quickly, and I realized that HTML and CSS was actually fairly simple. And I built a site that looked just like the printed out screenshot of what I was supposed to build. And I think that's actually what got me the job. But about 10 minutes after, I was in my car and I get a phone call, and they congratulated me and said, you have the job. And I was super ecstatic. What I didn't know about that job was it was actually a web design job. I was actually just designing websites and building them very, very quickly for all the different departments at the university. But at the time, I was more of a CS major, and so I really liked the programming aspect of it, connecting things with databases and, using programming to automate a lot of that stuff for you. And there was another person that basically did all the back-end work, and I went over and I said, I don't really like the design work. I would really like to learn whatever you're learning. And at the time it was C# and .NET and SQL Server database. And of course, they would always help me out with any of my questions, and I would get a little bit better every single day, learning different things about ASP.NET, and had a little bit of .NET experience under my belt. And then that job opportunity kind of pushed me into another job, which was a mobile developer job on the campus. This is where like the iPhone just barely kind of came out and everyone was building apps for iPhone. Of course, I was never a big Apple person at the time, and I opted in to do Android development. I'd learned that on the side because I really enjoyed at least the concept of mobile development, really. And this job was really similar to the same job I had, which was basically taking all the different departments' websites and making mobile versions of them. So I was basically doing the same job, but I was doing the mobile side and getting paid for both of them. It was a really good gig, at least as a college student. But as I grew in my computer science degree, I was about a year or so in, my brother actually graduated a little bit earlier, and he needed another developer at the place that he was working at. And of course, you know, a family connection is fairly easy to get a job, and so I landed a job basically doing Visual Basic 6 with it was like automotive body shop repair. And so our job was basically to maintain this old application that was built a long time ago, and we'd add these new features to help with like scheduling of basically when you bring your car into a body shop to get painted or sanded or fixed or whatever it is. We'd be doing all the estimates, and then we'd also be more or less just scheduling. Now, the cool part about this job and all the jobs I told you about earlier were I mostly did them remote. I'd only have to go into the office every so often, especially when the jobs were kind of like on campus, but you can be anywhere on campus, or you can just log in at home if you were doing online school. After a couple of years, at least in that job, I got more interested in learning something that was newer in technology. I was doing Visual Basic 6, and Visual Basic 6 is almost as old as I am. And so I felt like I was learning an old technology that'd be, you know, way outdated by the time I'd actually graduate from college. So right before I was about to graduate on my senior year, I actually had a lead with one of my friend's dad worked at a company, and it seemed like a good opportunity, or at least the next move from where I was working. Now, this job was way different than anything I've ever had before. And the reason why was because it was a cubicle farm. If you don't know what a cubicle farm is, it's basically you get your own cubicle, you're right next to someone else. They might not even be working on the same thing that you're working on, and you're just working your 9-to-5 grind. The thing about it though is like everyone was really cool and chill and really understood work-life balance. But the job really wasn't for me. I hated that work culture, and I also didn't really enjoy how developers were really treated there. No, it wasn't really about having like bad managers or anything per se. It was just that like I didn't really feel challenged as a developer there. And on the side, I would be working on this thing called Mono for Android and Mono Touch, which was basically this Mono implementation for mobile operating systems. And this really combined most of my experience. I had this .NET experience, and I also had this Android experience. And so I would use that experience to help other people in the community. I did that long enough to be eventually offered a job, and I would start working at this place called Xamarin, a startup based in San Francisco and Boston, but I'd be working there remotely. Now, Xamarin in my eyes was one of the places that I think most people dream of working at. It had energy to it, and it also had like the grassroots that like everybody was working so hard on the same common vision. And also they had a lot of funding. So it was a really cool experience that whenever you go into the office, you were going to go to a really fancy dinner, or you would get really cool gear, and they would treat you really well. And so at this point, I kind of thought, maybe I should become the Xamarin guy. So I did just that. I niched myself down. I learned everything about Xamarin because I was part of that team, and I learned everything about Android specifically using Xamarin. And to be honest, that paid off really well because nobody else knew Android at all, and I was the go-to person for pretty much every question. But then one day, we got some great news in the morning. Microsoft just acquired Xamarin, and we were just so ecstatic because we knew that this was something that was inevitable. At the time, .NET didn't really have any type of mobile presence or really any future with mobile technology. And so Xamarin really fit that mold, and that's why we were eventually acquired. But as we were acquired by Microsoft, our startup titles and positions didn't really fit well into the Microsoft mold, at least initially. And so what I was technically doing was more of like a program manager or a technical product manager role, where I would actually be learning to use the product, using the product, building features with the engineering teams, and then delivering them to customers. Like, that was my role in a nutshell, and then that's kind of where my role transferred into Microsoft. This transition has led to some of the coolest experiences, at least in my technical career. Some of the coolest things that I've been able to do is to integrate the Xamarin SDK into the .NET SDK. And I'd be working on like Android emulators and improving just like Android performance all on Windows operating systems. Like, it was a super cool stack of just an area to be working in. So if you're watching this video and you've ever done Android development on Windows, I might have had some type of impact, at least on how fast it runs on Windows, which is really cool. But as all good things, they usually come to an end. I eventually found myself as, sure, I could be the Android guy for Xamarin for a long time if I really wanted to, but I kind of wanted to grow, and I wanted to grow into a role that would really help me at least more with the .NET ecosystem. Eventually, I landed into a role where I'm a senior program manager at NuGet, which is the .NET package manager. And now the challenges that I have, at least in this role, are way different than anything I've done on the Android side or anything in my career previously. But I get to wake up every single morning excited to go to work because I'm working with some of the smartest people, at least in the tech space. And also, I just really love what I do. Now, there was a lot of things along the way that I didn't tell you about. Like, I didn't tell you that I was an elementary school janitor the whole way up into high school, and that I would spend every waking moment after work just trying to learn how to code. And I didn't tell you about all the long nights in college where I'd be finished with my assignments, but I was more interested in the problems that I was working on the side with. And I definitely didn't tell you about all the failed bootstrap projects that I'd be working on after my 9-to-5 job. What I wanted to say in this video today is that no one's path is going to be the same to become a software developer. Your path is going to look a lot different than my path, and that's okay. And that's actually normal. There's going to be a lot of hard work. There's going to be a lot of sleepless nights, and there's going to be a lot of hustle. Now, you don't have to do that to get ahead. I did that because I felt that I needed to do that. Your path to becoming a software developer is going to be your own unique path. You might work really hard, or you might not. You may have a lot of sleepless nights, or you might even go to bed early. You might hustle after everything you do, or you might just take it easy. Regardless of whatever it is, just remember that your path is your path. Nobody else can define that path for you. What you can accomplish in 10 years is nothing but astounding. I look back to myself where I see myself as a janitor 10 years ago to a senior product manager at Microsoft, and I'm just amazed at what can be accomplished in a decade alone. And if you start today and you put the time in like I did, your results will be inevitable. You will have so many different opportunities that you'll just be able to choose from them. And you'll be happy that you got started today.